beginning of class, you could invite students to briefly record in a journal their current understanding of the law of tithing. At the end of class, you could invite your students to evaluate, how has your understanding of the law of tithing changed since the beginning of class? After identifying together various principles from a scripture block, you could ask students, in what order of importance would you rank these principles in your life? During a class discussion, you could ask students, think about how the atonement of Jesus Christ has affected your life to this point. You can invite students to evaluate application. Consider how you are currently doing in looking unto Christ in every thought. Write down what you feel is the next step for you in improving your relationship with Him in this regard.
All right. Okay, so this segment, this training is in a section that we're going to call Teach by the Spirit, which is interesting because that practice doesn't on its face kind of appear to be teaching by the Spirit per se. And so maybe as I try to get, I'm going to get something else up on the screen here in a second. What did using these self-evaluations have to do with teaching by the Spirit? I mean, that's actually kind of the point. If you've ever been in a class, there's kind of two ways that you're going to approach any given class period. You have everything planned out. You may even use a PowerPoint to make sure you don't forget anything, and everything's really guided by what you've prepared, and you don't stray from your lesson plan. Okay, that's one way to do it. This was a very different kind of skill and method. What you were actually doing in doing these self-evaluations about doctrines or truths or principle, you're really opening things up. When you're teaching by the Spirit, this helps students kind of consider their own perspectives, their own feelings, experiences, and very specific truths. This is going to let them kind of start where they are, which is super helpful for you as a teacher. One of the issues that we have as teachers is we'll plan a lesson, but typically we're planning the lesson as we understand it. Which is one reason why sometimes students don't necessarily see our prepared lessons as very relevant to them and their experiences. If you take the opportunity to allow them to think about how they personally feel about any given truth and allow them to examine that against any of the examples that they've had in their lives, suddenly the truth has this relevant connection to them. Okay, so here's a couple of things I'm going to invite you to practice in an upcoming lesson. Okay, so look at a lesson plan. Now there are curriculum in our pacing guide you could just click on for the future, the upcoming week. Select a specific doctrine in one of those lessons that you'll be teaching in the future, and then practice writing 2 or 3 simple self-evaluations that students can use to consider their current understanding of the doctrine and how that understanding has changed after the discussion. So kind of like a bookend. How do you feel about, the doctrine of faith now? Spend some time teaching the truth and discussing and having an experience, and then do another one where you ask them, so now what do you understand? Okay. Those are 2 really important ways that you could kind of gauge them where they are and where they went for your lesson. Here's a different practice you could do. Select a moment in an upcoming lesson when a class discussion is planned. Okay. Practice writing 2 or 3 questions that help students evaluate their own perspective and experience related to a principle that will be identified. Does that make sense? Being really careful to kind of craft an open-ended question that allows them to kind of evaluate, okay, their own experiences. And then here's a third practice. Find a place in an upcoming lesson plan where you will focus on application, okay? This is after you've helped them identify a principle, after you've spent some time feeling the truth of that principle, maybe giving people opportunities to testify of that principle. Now how do we use it? How do we do this principle in our daily lives? Rather than just inviting students to apply a particular doctrine or principle, practice writing 2 or 3 invitations that help them evaluate their current application and how to continue improving. That's different than, okay, now I need you all to go pay tithing. Now the invitation is, consider how you are currently feeling about this law and what are some things that you need to do to have a testimony of it. Go talk to your bishop, go have a conversation with a parent, some kind of really specific invitation. So I have just up on the board an example for doctrinal mastery that's coming up next week, okay? Isaiah 29, 13 through 14. And this is those verses in Isaiah that the Lord actually quotes to the prophet Joseph Smith when he comes in the first vision, that they draw near with their mouth, and with their lips they do honor me, but have removed their hearts far from me. But then in verse 14 he says, behold, I will proceed to do a marvelous work among this people, even a marvelous work and a wonder, for the wisdom of their wise shall perish, and the understanding of their prudent men shall be hid. And the principle written in the doctrinal mastery is this. Here's the truth that we want these students to understand. The restoration of the gospel of Jesus Christ is a marvelous work and wonder, okay? How would you give them an opportunity there's 3 practices, remember? How would you get them to do a simple self-evaluation to consider their current understanding of this truth, okay? And on the flip side of that, remember, what would be a simple evaluation of what they now understand after you've had a discussion? Or practice 2, what are 2 or 3 questions that can help them evaluate their own perspectives? What is their own experience with living in the restoration? Okay, 2 or 3 questions about that. Or how would we apply this? What are some specific invitations to apply this truth? Spend some time. Focus on how you can intentionally ask some questions that allow students to be led by the Spirit, be taught by the Spirit, and then allow them to see why it's relevant to them in their lives. Okay. If you have questions, please reach out to me.